Okay, welcome to the third episode of my drawing collaboration that I've got with my subscribers. So this is the third drawing that I've done so far, I'm going to do. And if you're not familiar with my channel yet, then the premise is that I produce some kind of sketch or doodle. It's going to be pretty abstract, it's going to be open to interpretation. And the idea is that then people can take the sketch and then continue to paint into it and draw into it. And then we'll have finished pieces or continued sketches presented from people that have viewed the video, and then perhaps then even later on I'll take one or two of those pieces of work and I may further continue to work into those as well. So the idea is to start a sketch not really knowing what it is, it's just a bunch of shapes. I love drawing like this. I like the idea of not knowing what you're going to end up with at the beginning of a sketch. What tends to come out is the kind of forms and shapes that have drawn a lot in your time and your experience. And then what I like to do then is interpret that, add textures, colours, backgrounds, light, different kinds of settings, whatever your imagination sees in it. So I've had a great response again to the second episode that I created. The first episode I think had 12 people submit work or 12 images, and I think I've got pretty much similar this time. So I'm going to go through them as I draw this image. I'm going to interrupt it with showing you other people's work. Before I get onto the last week's sketch, episode 2 sketch, I'm just going to show you one of the paintings that arrived late to the video last time, but I feel that I still want to show it off. Okay, and this contribution comes from John Arts. Really love this piece of work. It reminds me of lava lamps. I used to have a lava lamp back in the 90s, long after they were fashionable, I suppose, but they kind of had a bit of a renaissance. I'm looking at some of the shapes and forms and the lighting and the colours. It really reminds me of staring into the lava lamp at the time. I really like the way that he's used some of the main shapes and then repeated them in the far distance on the horizon. The colours are really vibrant. I like the contrasting purples and greens. Really love this interpretation, John. That's why I'm showing it a week later. I do like the fact that it fundamentally hasn't changed the shapes. He has used all of the shapes, he's just extended them, added more of a background sense, increased the sense of scale in there as well. Really appreciate the fact that he's ran with what I created and what I provided. Really nice, thank you for that. If you want to know how to submit your contributions, all you need to do is visit my Patreon page, which is in the link in the description below. You don't have to be a patron at all over at Patreon. I'm going to make the files, the JPEG or the PNG version of this image, plus the Procreate file, as well as a Photoshop file. Although really they're probably only going to be one layer, but just in case there's other layers in the future, I will always provide it as those formats. You can download it there, and in the description I'm also going to provide a Dropbox link, and all you need to do there is just upload your file and give me a name so I can give you a shout out as well. Okay, and this next contribution is from Spike Wetmore. I really like what Spike's done. He's obviously seen a hand form in there and then run with that idea, so I can see the hand, the thumb, the fingers and the sleeve. It makes the other forms look more like a hip bone or something like that. So that's a really interesting angle on it. Because he's placed one human anatomy form in there, it kind of makes you look at all the other forms in a similar vein too. And now that the hand form has been pointed out, it's very difficult to see anything other than the hand form, even when you revert back to the original drawing. So really interesting that. I think it's definitely used some of the forms that seem to have been coming out in the drawing naturally. So I really appreciate that. Thanks very much, Spike. This contribution comes from Slavomir Anishko, and I really found this piece fascinating and really quite funny. Slavomir has added eyes and what sort of looks like little kind of spider webs with threads coming down with more, I don't know, feathers or eyes and little streams and bits of grassland. It almost looks, when you look close up, like little golf course features actually, with also little bridges going across from one area to another. Really fascinating, really quite amusing to look at length this. So thanks very much for this contribution, Slavomir. It's really interesting. Thank you. Okay, the next contribution comes from Peter Craftsman. This is a really interesting mix of different forms, different subject matters, really quite dynamic. So we've got cutters and some organic things with bolts of lightning coming into the mix. Really strange mix of things. I really like the surreal nature of this piece. And again, another painting, another drawing that remains quite faithful to the original forms, but it's gone in a very different direction. The colours, the textures, it looks like some kind of fruit being cut from a vine, but being struck by lightning at the same time. Very strange, but awesome at the same time. So thanks very much for that, Peter. Much appreciated. The next piece has no name attached to, unfortunately, but I'm going to show it anyway. Whoever's submitted this may want to add the name to the comment section at a later point. But I really like this. It looks like some kind of alien bug that's smashed into the window and cracked the glass. Really quite imaginative. I really like that. So whoever contributed this one, I really appreciate that. Totally different perspective on this than I ever would have imagined. So that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, a contribution from Michael Skiba. I love the way he's rotated this image, and it almost looks like a strange kind of creature, monster coming out of a bottle or something. But yeah, a more organic shape than that really, but definitely something that looks more alive now. It's got these strange kind of rat tails or worms growing out of it, these tentacles. Really interesting. I love the colours. I like the fact that he's brought out more of the actual form by adding highlights and tones as well as the colours, so he's made more of the forms than he actually provided, which is great. Definitely gets my imagination going. This is the kind of piece that I might wish to work on in the future. I can definitely see potential for this. Maybe if I mix this with another piece of work that I've perhaps produced or will produce in the future, this is definitely going to go amongst some of the pieces that I think has potential. So really love that. Thanks very much for the contribution, Michael. Okay, this piece is from Moly again. This is the second piece that Leith has very kindly contributed to this project. And again, we've got something that I would have anticipated, never would have imagined. Highly imaginative, and yet the forms are there. I mean, it's been rotated by 90 degrees, but the forms are definitely there. So on a previous painting, you may have seen what looked like a hand shape. In this particular piece, you can see the arm, the elbow, and that kind of the same point at which the fingers and the thumb came together is the same point at where the sort of the fold in the arm is. Really imaginative. He's very much put his own stamp on this, but that's fantastic. Love your style, Leith. Really appreciate the input. Thank you. Okay, we've got a couple of contributions from Kelsey Lloyd this time. First one, again, reminds me of a hand. but it seems to be sort of plucking a flower from a vine, like a rose. But at the same time, the rose looks quite organic too. Similarly to the way that a previous contribution kind of looked like a hip bone, this one kind of looks like a heart or something organic that's more anatomical, but it seems to be growing. And again, the hand and arm look a little bit more rock-like this time, more elemental. But a beautiful piece of work, especially the background, the shading and the colours and the tone really help focus your eye towards the centre of the piece. So that's much appreciated, Kelsey, thank you. And the second piece of work that Kelsey's contributed, it looks really strange. It's been rotated. It looks, I can see all sorts of things going on from this, but obviously probably the most obvious form is kind of like a bug or a spider. But then when you look at its head, it kind of reminds me of a donkey. It's got donkey's ears and it's got a donkey's face. Very strange, but extremely surreal. So that's exactly the kind of thing that I love. Really appreciate all the hard work you put into these two contributions, Kelsey. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Okay, another fantastic contribution from John Arts again. This is obviously for the second drawing that I provided. Again, he's expanded the drawing that I provided, created a much bigger setting for it, provided a background, a sky, a colour scheme, but he's also extended some of the shapes and forms to make them less organic and more mechanical. They look like kind of armour or sails almost. They're really fantastic. Really, really love some of the shapes and forms that are coming out in your contributions there, John. This definitely gets my imagination going. I could see myself perhaps taking inspiration from this in a piece of work or further extending it. Love the fact that you've submitted 2 contributions already, John. Really appreciate all the hard work again that you've put into this. It's a really beautiful piece of work. Thank you. Okay, we have another contribution again this week from Elliot Mans. Really love this, Elliot. I love the sense of sort of fire or burning shapes. The colours are really interesting. I definitely see potential in this. It appeals to the subject matter that I'm really interested in. So you haven't changed fundamentally the drawing that I provided, but extended some of those limbs, those forms a little bit further. Really like the contrast between the light and the dark areas on this. I think that's a really nice job. So thanks very much, Elliot, for the contribution again this week. Okay, we have a contribution from Andy Gradeville. Now, Andy's been in touch and said it's not quite finished, but this is all you managed to get due in the time. But having said that, you've done an awful lot, Andy. So you put loads of extra elements in this, colours, textures, subject matter, really started to make it into a full painting, which is awesome. I really like the sense of scale, the imagination that's gone into this. This is definitely the kind of subject matter that appeals to me. These are the kind of colours, the forms, the kind of sci-fi aesthetic that I really especially love. Really gets my imagination going. I could see potential for working into this one in the future as well. So this is going to be added to my shortlist of ones that I may further work into on another video at a further future time. Awesome piece of work, Andy. Really appreciate the effort on this one. Thanks very much. Okay, last but definitely not least is a contribution from Andre Peters. This is really bright, colourful, quite scary looking, some kind of strange monster superhero carrying the head of another creature by the looks of it. Really kind of bright, colourful, but somehow dark in subject matter. I really like the weirdness of this one, so awesome idea, Andre. Really love this. I never in a million years would have imagined it going in this direction, so this is a perspective on it that I really appreciate. Like I say, really fun, but kind of sinister at the same time, and I love it. Thanks very much, Andre. Okay, I'm going to leave this sketch at this point. It's quite loose, quite rough still. The reason for that is deliberate, so that you get a chance to interpret it. If I solidify it too much, add too much shading and tone and detail, then it limits the interpretations that I'm going to get, basically. Like I've already said, there's a link down in the description for my Patreon page where you can download this file, and there's also a Dropbox link down in the description again where you can upload your interpretations. Make sure to subscribe. I also have another channel, which I'm sure most of you are aware of. Most people that have come here have probably come from my other channel anyway, but I offer more traditional tutorials such as landscapes and all sorts of other things like that. Please check out my other videos. I'm going to upload an interpretation where I'm picking back up the baton from another contributor and then furthering work into the piece of work that they've helped out on as well. Okay, catch you back here again. See you soon.